Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. You know, I bring a lot of guests on the show, but this is truly a privilege to have this guest on the show. It is rare to find someone who's a true advocate in the whiskey industry, not because they are in the industry themselves or they distill, but just because they just want to see other people in the industry succeed. And that's why this person is part of the people I follow and always pay attention to what they do. But beside the person himself, the distiller, the craft that this person have, when we talk about pioneers, when it comes to craft distillery and bringing pride to a certain terroir of whiskey, yeah, this distillery is in. I'm talking about Catoctin Creek. I never can say it right. It's like a tongue twister. I never can say it right. Catoctin Creek or Catoctin Creek Distillery in Virginia. And I wanted to bring the one and only. If you've been in the industry long enough, you heard this name before. There's no way you never heard this name. Rebecca Harris. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Rebecca to the show. Hey, Becky.
Thank you so much, Jack. What an introduction. I don't even know what to say.
It's that's how we do it here. But honestly, I'm just happy you're here. Like I say, you are one of those people that I do follow, and I I I heard about you before I knew who you were or what you looked like, because when the conversation is to be had about craft distillery and the people that really brought it front facing and really advocated for the rules, regulation, things to change, people always bring up the name Becky Harris. So I said, you know what? What not? Let's bring Becky here and let me talk to her. So welcome to the universe.
Thank you so
Welcome to my
much.
hood.
I'm so
And
excited.
thank you. For people that don't know you or what you do, tell them who you are and what do you do.
so, so I'm Becky Harris. My husband and I started Catoctin Creek Distillery back in 2009. So we were on the just as things were starting to ramp up in the craft distilling movement. That was like tenfold number of distilleries ago, right? 15
Mhm.
years and a tenth the number of distilleries. Um, so we make rye whiskey. We focus on rye whiskey that's we source here grain to glass. Not source really. We make the grain. We buy the grain. Don't grow the grain. Buy the grain. Make the whiskey. Always grain to glass. And we've really only focused on rye, so it makes us super niche.
Yes.
And we love rye. I mean, rye is so much of what was the history of whiskey, and that's really what we're passionate about and what we share with everyone.
And so you start this with your husband. Um, how long have you guys been in, or the distillery has been functional?
This is our 15th anniversary, so 15 years this month.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's nuts.
That's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, like my kids were little when this started. They're grown men now, and yeah,
Wow.
it's been a lot. We've seen a lot, and that's kind of in a lot of ways that's what has kind of made, in addition to making rye, the other part of the advocacy of what I do. That's kind of like engaged that piece of it for me, because so much of making this industry better for all these distilleries out there who and people with dreams of opening distilleries,
Correct.
there's so much to be done to make this industry better for them. And so that's the piece of it that I do outside of making the whiskey, which is
The
what I
whiskey
also.
itself. Yeah. So before we talk about the whiskey and your operations and everything else, I really want to highlight that part. So 15 years from 2009, right? That'll be 2009 to
Yeah.
now. What would you say, right, for all the people here that are following on on Facebook, on YouTube, LinkedIn. Before you hear the answer, you need to make sure you go follow Catoctin Creek Distillery because they're really good at telling you a lot and putting a lot out there. So do me that favor. I want Becky's social media to just go crazy today, just for today. But but 15 years in the industry, big, big, you know, a lot of changes have happened in 15 year bourbon boom, people going crazy about whiskey and that. People like me that walked in as influencer. What would you say has been the best part of those 15 years as your work into advocacy and making sure that a better future for American whiskey?
The best part is the people, whether they're the people who work in hospitality that you get to talk to, tell your story to, whether it's passionate people who love whiskey and customers, or, folks like yourself who try to educate about whiskey. All of that is the people, right? That's what kind of like makes all of the other stuff worth it, right? For the first 4 or 5 years, I didn't even get to see many people because I was doing this like early shift so I could raise my kids and get them to school and get them home from school. So for me, what really made it rewarding and kind of given us that second wind as we enter the more harder part of the industry now, really in our second 10 years is the people.
That you know what, the people makes the the word go around, and the more diverse, the more different we are, the better we make this industry. Now let's talk about operations. Somebody told me a story, but I didn't want to spoil it. I say I will let Becky herself tell me
Jeez.
why Virginia and why rye.
So this is what I love about kind of going into this is it ties into so many different layers of the way history and business and operations and agriculture and the colonialism and all the other stuff rolls into it. Virginia was where the first English settlements were on this on in this country. And of course, one of the first things that they did was start making whiskey. They probably didn't grow their own stuff right away. They probably used some of the, extra feed they had to do it, but basically starting to make whiskey and that it ties in with agriculture because Virginia was essentially the center of tobacco growing in the beginning as the settlements spread up and down the eastern seaboard. Tobacco was king. Tobacco here, tobacco in North Carolina, and and that is an incredibly labor intensive process, right? Mostly done by enslaved people, and that tobacco making means that the men are essentially doing that work. It is the most value added work of all the growing, whether they be the large, whether you say that the large plantation like places with a lot of enslaved folks, or whether they're small farms, by poor whites. You essentially had men doing that work because that brought in the most money, which meant that the women made the whiskey. The women made the beer. The women made the cider. That was just another job that women had. And, there's a really cool book called Every Home a Distillery that
Mhm.
talks about that particular time in US history. And that was when women did this work. They're not recorded because women didn't have an identity in the records at that point, but we know that it was there because of the laws in which taverns were kept and those kind of things were kept. Was folks had to have a background in this before they could open a tavern. Where
Yeah,
did you get somebody who knew how to run a tavern? It was the daughter of a tavern running family. They'd get
correct.
married, their husband would own a tavern. It was the same. So you had a whole period where there was lots of tobacco grown. The cover crop was planted. That's rye. Then that crop is turned into whiskey. And by the time that George Washington had his distillery, at around the Revolutionary War time, he had the largest distillery in the entire United States at that time. And it is
That's news to
probably,
me. That is news to me.
it is so cool, Jack. You come and see the place. It is so cool. They have a recreation of the distillery that they excavated based on the architectural footprint. And they rebuilt it, and it was the largest distillery in the United States. And at that time, there were 13,000 distilleries in the United States. Yes, 13,000 distilleries. 3,500 distilleries in Virginia alone, which tells you that every little farm was a distillery and everybody was making whiskey.
Correct.
And for context, right now in the whole United States, we have 2,700 distilleries.
Wow. Wow.
So
That mean that says so much.
it was totally different. So when you're talking about, historical whiskey, and at that point it was mostly unaged.
Yep.
And in Virginia, it was almost all 100% rye.
Okay.
So that was really where we started, right? When we started, we had an unaged rye that we would sell at. It's hard to sell unaged rye.
Oh yeah.
It's people. You have to teach everybody what to do with it. Essentially, aged rye became the default.
Correct.
And that's really where we've settled in and we're really focused on. But that was the history that I get excited about, because it's a history of small businesses, not, these big corporations. Those didn't
Correct.
come till after, when you started getting into, between 1790, 1820s, that was when that change started to move, right? The buildings got bigger.
We got fans here. Fans of Becky are jumping in the chat.
Hi. we had That was really where it changed, right? And suddenly those little farms couldn't compete anymore, and they just stopped, or they went underground. But essentially, you started to see the industrialization of whiskey, and that was when things started to become standardized.
Correct.
And that's really where most people talk about whiskey is, Pennsylvania whiskey and Maryland whiskey. That was from the time of the industrialization of whiskey.
Correct.
That wasn't from when Virginia was this, the center of it. And we're kind of like harkening back to that. So what we do is from local grain. We distill it manually. Nothing is computerized in the distillation process. It's all done by taste and temperature. And
Okay.
that's how we make it.
Oh, all right. Now we get into the nitty gritty of things. But before that, what was your background before you got into whiskey? That's a question I ask every one of my guests, because the craziest thing is, I swear, if I didn't start this interview and I just pushed click and just saw this, I'm like, oh, she's a historian. She's about to tell us. If you told me you taught American history before you were doing this, I'd be like, absolutely. That's so. What was your background before you got into whiskey?
So I'm a chemical engineer.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it does track a little bit. Yeah.
I started my career working for a company that did, we made polystyrene foam trays,
Okay.
cups and plates.
Mhm.
Then I worked for a company that did copper and nickel plating on plastics. So the insides of your computer, your cell phones,
Mhm.
all of those are plated with copper and nickel. Then I worked for a company that did contact lenses. That's really hard.
Mm.
Making contact lenses is really hard. Then my husband had this idea to do this, right? And it was his idea. He was a whiskey drinker. He likes to say 20 years of government contracting taught him a love of whiskey. And so he came up with the idea, and I was like, if I can make contact lenses, I can learn to make whiskey.
I can learn to make
I can learn to
whiskey.
make whiskey. And honestly, that was the hard part wasn't making the whiskey. The hard part is making money making whiskey.
That you know what? We young people say that's a bar. The hard part is making money making whiskey. That's a bar. I'm gonna use it one time and say, if you really want to know how hard the business is to making money making whiskey. So
Yes, it's
that
not the
is that is
making
very
whiskey.
cool.
It's not even
So you
making good
guys,
whiskey.
yeah, 2009, you start operation. It seemed like, I'm gonna ask a little bit about your distilling process. It seemed like you really kept a very, uh I'm not gonna call it old school. I'm gonna say you a traditional way of making whiskey. Um, is it because you really wanted to keep the history of making whiskey alive, or is it just how you learned to make whiskey and you kept it that way? Because more of Scotland, you see that. I mean, big distilleries like Bruichladdich that have been around for a long time refuse to modernize because they learn from, from family to family, and apprentice to apprentice, and they want to make sure they same process, by nose, by taste. And I'm assuming pastille, distilling, they don't want to go column at all. So tell us about your distilling process and what do you do, and a little bit about the grain. If you want to highlight Virginia grain, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so we do get local grain. We felt like that was kind of where we started. We always did it by strictly by flavor. So I wasn't a big whiskey drinker when we started this company, and so everything was just what seemed good to me. And I was really conservative and kind of feeling my way through distillation for the first few years because it was really not having a deep background in any of this. It was just kind of like, let's kind of see where it goes. um, I think I've gotten much more comfortable with rolling with it. We initially couldn't get local grain.
Mhm.
That took us a long time because we had a lot of folks at that time. There were 6 distilleries in Virginia. We'd go and talk to farm groups, and nobody wanted to work with us. They didn't. What is this distilling? Is it like wine? Because there were wineries in Virginia. They didn't know anything about distilleries, and so it was a real struggle for a long time. We started out, and we still do use 30-gallon barrels. It was the largest barrel that I was the only person there on a day-to-day basis. It was the
Wow.
largest barrel I felt comfortable handling on my own
Hmm.
in the plant. So I felt like it was still give me that seasonality that I wanted to get, but it also was something I could move.
Yeah.
Um, and so we really stuck with that, and just really distilling for flavor. And I spent the first few years kind of really nailing down how I felt the profile needed to be on the still and how to make that repeatable. um, you know we've used different kinds of varietals of rye all along.
Hmm.
I have work with a farmer right now. He makes me different ones. We talk about it every year when he's getting ready for his crop. We talk about what was good about last year's crop for him, what was not good about it. If there are any particular grains varietals I want to try, he's more than happy to do so. But he has also other clients that he sells rye for cover crop too. So for him, that secondary part of his business is really important. So it's a very collaborative, and I think that's really key because in this climate, Virginia's humid. It's not super cold here. You have to rye. It grows differently than it does in
Hmm.
northern Minnesota,
Yeah.
and Saskatchewan. So
Mhm.
you, I really defer to kind of what makes sense for him. As long as it tastes good to me, that's how we roll. And I always use the mash bill as 100% rye, but I use it from different sources so I can kind of balance out the varietals in different percentages. So if I'm trying something new, start it at kind of a low percentage and move it up if I like it.
Speaking
Um,
of starting,
yeah.
if somebody had to discover Catoctin Creek,
Yeah.
uh, where would you have them start?
So like as far as like which whiskey?
All your expression. Yeah, I come to you, I
Yeah.
say, Becky, I just found out about, which is true because believe it or not, today will be the official day. I do have a bottle of yours that I never opened that I bought about 4 years ago. But today will be the official day, ladies and gentlemen, that I get you actually try Catoctin Creek for the first time. So whatever reaction you get today, that's as official as it gets. So you we will
I
see if you're
usually
making
start
a fan.
people, I like to start low proof and work up
Okay.
because to me that makes sense. I think we gave you, I think I sent, did I send you, I usually have an 80 proof, which is our, the low proof. It's got like the reddish label on it and the reddish.
I have here the Roundstone Rye Whiskey 80
Yeah,
proof.
that's the one. That's my I use this one a lot for, I get a lot of people who tell me they think rye is too spicy,
Hmm.
or they're coming from they're very much bourbon people and they've
Hmm.
not, so this is an easy drinking rye. So I like to say this is the one that um it's, nobody's working too hard. The spice is low key. It still carries really nicely in a cocktail because of it being 100% rye, that it really will stand up to cocktail use, but it's super easy drinking. And I think, without being anything but rye, it's not a blended, where I'm blending in neutral grain. No, it's still 100% rye. What I'm doing is choosing barrels for this expression that are easy drinking at 80 proof.
What is was the average age of these barrels that you're
That's
blending?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, these are 30-gallon barrels, 2 years old. Um, and I just taste through a dozen at a time and pick which ones seem to hit at the proof that goes.
Exactly what you described. Nice floral notes on the nose. For me, I always describe the quality of a rye by the floral note that I get. For me, a good rye remind me of like fresh lavenders. Like fresh cut lavenders is what a good rye remind me of. So I love those floral notes, perfect floral notes coming through, not aggressive at all. No, none of that high cinnamon or
Right.
anything coming up at all. And it's very easy going, a little kick in the back, but very, very easy to enjoy. Nothing to go to church about. Is hello,
Yep.
goodbye. It's
Yes,
I
that's
can.
exactly it. And it's and then we our biggest market is in Virginia. We're in the ABC stores. This is our best selling, product in Virginia at the ABC stores. Just
If somebody even doesn't like rye, they
that's
would
it.
drink this. They would
Yeah.
drink this. This
That's
is
what
not for them.
I tell people, this is what I use for conversion, right? When I'm a rye evangelist, if you will.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you
people
are.
come up and say, "What bourbon can I try?" And I'm like, "I
Do
want
you
you to
like
try
rye?
rye." Yeah.
So for the longest time, for people, if you ask somebody who knew me at the beginning, about 5 years ago when I started in the industry, I'll swear to everyone I do not like rye. I do not. Because all the rye that I had were really high proof, and it gave me heartburn. And I believe now that I know more about the distilling process, I realize some of those rye were cut a little too in the head, or so it gave me that heartburn. And I just couldn't do it till I tried one rye one day that just changed my mind about it. And since then, I started giving more chances to rye and doing that. So seem like a few people love your rye. I have a bottle of the 116 I pick up in Maryland the past fall. So I mean, we have people here that do enjoy what you do, but I can tell you right now, if this is where we started, I'm excited.
Well, I like to tell people that, 10 years ago when I first started tasting people on my rye, the first thing they would say is, "This doesn't taste like rye."
Hmm.
And I think what it was 10 years ago, so much of the rye that was on the market was sourced rye from the
Hmm.
handful of distilleries that did make rye at that point.
Correct.
10 years later, I can go to a whiskey show and I can find people who have made grain to glass rye, and they are so different and it is so exciting, right? Because I never know what it's going to taste like. And I was so excited when that happened because I said someday, at that time, I keep telling people, I said, when we get enough rye producers out there making it in different places, with different techniques, you're going to find rye to be just as exciting as bourbon, as scotch, as now American single malt. There's
Correct.
all different ways, right?
Correct.
And there is no one rye anymore that people can talk about.
Correct.
Yes.
And I will tell you right now, if you guys are here are watching, you are on Instagram or Facebook, on LinkedIn, and that, do me a favor. First thing I want to do is go ahead and follow Catoctin Creek Distillery. Make sure you give them a follow so you can see the journey. These are the people that are pioneering that craft distillery that started. If you don't know about this brand, do me. If you just now following them, do me a favor, go follow them and put an F in the chat and tell me yes, I did follow them because I want to make sure that you guys know that yeah, on Instagram I can see people already coming in with their follow, and put an F in the chat and let me know that you follow them because I want to make sure that I don't think Becky, I personally don't think you get the credit you deserve. I
Well,
personally don't,
you-
because when I did a deep dive on you, just like I do on most of my guests before they come on, I'm like, oh my god, she has an impressive milestones in the industry, and I think she's just, she maybe because she's a shy person and just not really out there, but she's done so much to change the mindset, right? Really, the mindset in the industry. And now I have the proof of it with the tasting your whiskey myself. I'm like, okay, I see why there's a passion there and the quality of the whiskey I'm having. Yeah, let's keep on the journey as I ask question, but
the next one,
you started,
Jack, the
yes.
one, this one here, the Distiller's Edition. So it's the blue.
There you go. There we
Yes,
go.
that would be the
So
next one. So
the
people
next
tell
one
me,
is 46% ABV.
yes, this is the one. People ask me which one's my favorite, and I'm like a whiskey mom. I love all my children, depending on the day. This one is my staff's favorite. So this is the one they like to have a pour if they're having a shift drink or if they're doing
Oh,
something. This one is the one that's their
the
favorite.
nose is a little different.
It's different, and this
Yeah,
is
the nose is a
really.
little different.
And this is so again, this is when I'm taking a dozen barrels and I'm going through and tasting each barrel at cask proof. I taste the barrels at 92 proof and then I taste them at 80. And I find where the flavor pops and it gets the right experience, right? So
It is floral, but yet something sweet is coming through on this one. This, this is intriguing. It's quite intriguing. Something sweet also is in the background there, and I'm okay. I need to try this now. Okay, wait a minute, Becky. You're playing a trick on me. Is this a test? No, seriously, is this a test?
I'm not playing with you, Jack.
Are you like, you know what? This is the hood summary. I'm gonna send him just some weird stuff so we can test him to see if he actually have,
To see if you know
if he's
what you're talking
bullshitting
about.
about his palate or not. Because wait a minute, there's no way these two things are coming from the same distillery and are 100% right. There's no way. They literally taste different.
Yes. And it's these can be these can be the same distillate from two successive days, right? In the same set of barrels. And it's just the interaction of and they're go into the barrels at the same proof. It's just this is where I'm exploring what the changes are of the barrel, the influence of the barrel on the standard distillate that we make.
I,
So
I really want to hear about the way you are making this right, because you highlighted the traditional way, not electronic way. I want you
right.
to talk about that. Is that the side where your husband is more in and you're more on the barrel side?
No, no. I what I looked for when I was doing it is that and in some ways I almost didn't really have the correct language to talk about it. I found it really interesting when Todd Leopold started talking about the three chamber still, right? And the
Correct.
effect of the his third chamber where you're spending time distilling off alcohol at the point where the mash itself is getting lower and lower in ABV.
Mm-hmm.
And that at that point, that's where a lot of these textural elements come out, and there's a creaminess in the texture. And
Mm-hmm.
I really believe so. One of the things I like to do is distill a little quicker at the beginning of the distillation run, and then I use my cooling system to kind of slow that down, slow my roll, and then at the end of it, I really get to where there's barely a trickle coming off because I really want to spend a lot of time at the end of it building up a lot of the letting the reflux kind of build up more and more stuff and then come out, and then you're getting some of that creaminess in the texture and really bringing that out. And so for me, that's really where I think we're kind of doing something akin to what Todd's doing, on a bigger industrial kind of scale with the three
Right.
chamber. But we're doing that sort of thing with, a smaller manually run still.
Wow. Wow. Because so pot still, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's a hybrid, so it's got the
A
little column
hybrid.
on
Okay.
top, so it's got a little reflux I can play with. Um,
Correct.
for different purposes. But for the most part, this is because it's a youthful rye. I like it at around 2 years in a 30-gallon barrel for these expressions.
Correct.
I'm going with a little more reflux, but then I'm kind of like pulling a little bit at the end, so it balances out.
Okay. I
Yeah,
see the next one is much higher in proof.
this is our cask brew. This is going to be where you like to play. I know
Yeah.
the
The
truth.
truth is barrel proof. So we need to see what that cast proof is like, because this is what it's gonna tell me if I'm gonna 100% fall in love with the whiskey or not. Because once I have it at cast,
Yep.
and if it hits all the right notes for me, that's it. I'm
Hmm.
in love, and I'm an advocate for the whiskey forever. Then
So what
because
I like
um,
for a cask is, for me, it has to have a really lovely nose. I've got to like when I pop open, I put it in these drums with a removable lid, and I just like pop it open. I put my face right there, and it's like if I want to stay with it, that's kind of the first piece, right? I can't not want to stay there and keep smelling it. That's always got to be a piece of it. It's got to kind of like draw me in that way.
there is that I feel like there's that almost like a dark chocolate note, like a dark chocolate note. Um, of course, that lavender ish, but is almost. I know it's gonna sound weird, but it's chewy when I smell it and it gets in my on my palate. It's like I
It's a
can
delicate.
taste it. I can chew it. Wow, beautiful nose, beautiful nose. I can't argue. I cannot argue this nose. Obviously, I know you have a superior nose and
Uh,
function that I have
No,
because you've been doing it for a while.
everybody has different things that hit for them. For me, it's like I want that nose, and then when I sip it, um, the intensity of the alcohol at 116 proof has to be in timing tuned in with the intensity of the flavor for me. I don't want to just burn up front, that should be like everything comes at you in a wave as opposed to just burn and then taste. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I get those barrels that just are more burn up front. No, that's not going to be the one I'm picking.
Chocolate covered spice cake.
Mm.
Chocolate covered spice cake with a little bit of drizzle of caramel. That's what I would describe this pour to be. It's a chocolate covered spice cake, cinnamon spice cake with a little drizzle of caramel. That is the pour. Whoa.
You get it. It's like got, it's got the spice, but with this, because the texture, you should have that velvety kind of tongue
Mm-hmm.
feel. The
Mm-hmm.
mouth feel has, for me, that's super important because if I'm not getting that texture, then it reads hotter again. So that's really where that creaminess comes in.
I'll be honest, Becky. He knows like 116, but he does not drink at 116
It's a
because it
little
doesn't
deceptive.
like you. Yeah, you want that. You almost expect that kick, but it's more of a pleasant scratch, not a kick,
Mhm.
more of a scratch. Like is not aggressive at all. That's what I'm saying. Like spice cake, there's spice in it, but it's still chewy enough that you get that mouth feel and just that chocolatey note. Almost like when you're done with just that dark chocolate is wow. Okay,
Pretty
okay.
fun.
It's you know what? That's really the word. It's fun. No,
It's trying to be
I don't
fun.
think I've ever described a whiskey that way, but yes, this is fun. It's I'll be honest, I always come to this tastings skeptical always. I'm like, what they gonna throw at me now? I don't know. Because it is hard for someone to make a whiskey for me, and the intentionality matters, but obviously the skill of understanding layers when blending for folks, that's where the real charm comes in. That's where the impressive part come in. And I tell you what, if you like rye, this is for the audience. If you like rye, this is my challenge to you. There's 46 proof here. There's 46% ABV here.
Yeah.
Okay. You grab that, right? You grab that. And if you don't like it, Becky and I will split the difference and we'll send you your money back.
There we go.
And I say, if you like rye, that's what we say. If
Mhm.
you like rye. But if you're somebody who's a professional rye drinker
Yeah.
and you don't, from this day moving forward, if somebody say I'm a rye lover and they don't have this in their portfolio, you are not a rye lover. You're just a poser. This need to be in your portfolio of ryes because this right here is what rye is made of. I think if people tasted your rye first, they will give so much more, more chances to more rye in the industry a chance because you make it approachable. That's the best way I can say you make rye approachable. So
I think that it's exciting to me that there are so many different profiles of it, and that the fact is you can find ryes. You love spice bombs, you can find those too. You want ones with more fruits and cherries and nuts and a little citrus and plum. You can find those. There's
I
it's
would have never
nothing
guessed. I'm
about it.
telling you right now, Becky, you're blowing my mind because I would have never guessed that 100% rye could be blended to make me feel. That's the best way to just to make me feel something, and that's what's happening here. So I love when people come on the show because we get to discover something that is different from when people. So many times people go and say, "Hey, I watched your show and I went and I picked up a bottle and you're right. This is really what it is," or "Yeah." I'm never picking up this bottle because from the show I knew, I didn't,
It
I
wasn't for
wasn't gonna
me.
like it. So
Do you have the
I'm
Rabble Jack? What do you got? What else did I send you?
I have the rabble rouser. What is
Yeah.
that about?
Okay. So this one, and this is fun, this one, because so all of these other whiskeys that you tried so far, Jack, have been selected. They're single barrel expressions. So I'm picking barrels that are just that way at that proof.
Okay.
Um, the Rabble Rouser was our bottled and bond, and we've been releasing it since, oh gosh, 2016, 2015, something for quite a while. So we would do 4-year-old bottled and bond. And originally, I had my aging warehouse was an old horse barn, and
Okay.
I could put 4 30-gallon barrels in the back of my 93 Ford Ranger and drive them out there, roll them down the ATV ramp off the truck, and flip them end over end in there. And that was all I could do. I couldn't do
Correct.
53s. Now, if
Correct.
you age in a 30-gallon barrel for 4 years, you're losing 30% of that whiskey, right?
Correct.
Loss, loss, loss. No angel share, that's crap. It's loss.
You
And
know what? I'm reposting this part. Becky Harris said that's not angel share, that's loss.
it's loss. It's loss. And so what when the first thing when I got a warehouse that had a cement floor and a forklift was I wanted to put that product into 53-gallon barrels and start aging it at 53-gallon barrels. So
Correct.
the whiskey that's in that sample that I sent you is actually the first bottled and bond blend that we have released that was aged in 53-gallon barrels. And it's also not at the same time, it's also a blend of 9 different barrels that I chose specifically to create a blend, which is the first time I've done that. Haven't had to
Okay.
do that. Haven't had the luxury of doing that. Um, with our 53s. So I'm super excited about this one. It was really fun to put together this year.
How many barrels?
And we did 9, of which
So
3 were really like pretty low. So we had some fairly leaky ones, but it's so we got uh, probably we had like um, what do we have like 300 packs, so 1800 bottles, something like that.
wow. Okay.
So
1800
it's
bottle. Wow.
small.
That's still small.
Yeah, even my biggest releases are still small.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like I'm sitting there going, what, even the biggest release is still small.
Yeah, yeah. We're still a really small operation. We're 15 years in, but we still a pretty small operation.
So speaking of operation, how how much are you delivering every what do you call it? Let's just say how much are you
Every year.
delivering every year? What's coming
Yeah,
out of the Open Creek?
my husband said today actually we were talking to someone. I think it was from oh, I don't remember, but he was talking. We were actually talking about George Washington's distillery, and he said, when George Washington's distillery was the largest distillery in the U.S., it maybe made 100,000 bottles, in a year,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's where we are. So we're like 15 years later, we are almost to George Washington. So at in back in 1790.
You know what?
It's
Here's my
different, isn't
question.
it? It's
Here's my
different.
question, Becky. Why don't you brag more about your blending skill? No, I just want to know. This is honest to God question. Why don't you brag more about your blending abilities?
Well, because this is my first real one with it. So I was so excited this year to kind of like play with that. And it was really fun to kind of like, okay, how do I want to mix these together and the personalities of the different barrels and do it in a different way because I hadn't had that really be part of what we were doing. So, it's I guess the proof of the pudding is now, right? Do people like it? I liked
I,
it.
I'm sitting there asking myself, what, I hear a lot of name in the industry talk about, how they're amazing at blending, how they're doing this and that. No, your name never come in that category. It's more like, hey, Becky is our advocate. She's the one who helped me do this or opened this door for me and got me to be. She inspired me to do that. I I think you should get on the road with this. More people should be calling you to blend for them because I would have never guessed that this is just a night. And I would even have said, oh, this is a single barrel. That's because I'm seeing the layer, but it doesn't taste like eight different whiskey blended together. Is it power to how you are cutting your heart, heads, and tail, or is it power to how amazing you see it? You know what? Better yet, here's a question: how do you look at blending your whiskey? Do you look at it? Somebody asked this question before in a conference. Do you look at it as composing music or do you look at it as cooking?
So for me, it was for this one. What was interesting, and I think it would be now. It's actually kind of making me want to play more in different ways. But what I had was a bunch of different rye barrels made, fall of 2017. They all had similar mash bill. Obviously it's bottled in Mon, so same season, same year,
Hmm.
same distiller. And but they had different profiles, and some of them were quite markedly different, right? So it was trying to figure out, and for me, it was really more, I would say, more musical, if you will. I was
Okay.
looking for what makes it a harmonious experience. Like, oh, this one's bringing this note, but I feel like we need some notes that bring maybe some more depth. And so it was kind of putting together, if you will, layers of flavor in a musical way.
You know what? It makes sense. Symphony in my mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
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 some of them, some barrels didn't fit, and
correct.
that was really actually interesting to me was that, it was like I tried some and I did maybe, half dozen different. I only had a limited number of barrels, so I'm playing with, and it's like, you know what, this one is just jangling
Correct.
in the blend, and it's just like you have to go.
Correct.
Well, you're finding ones that make that harmony and that you really want it to be rounded and harmonious.
You know what? I I I I t- I'm gonna say this. You are a hidden secret. What you produce is a hidden secret. Um, Guys, here's the first thing I'm gonna tell you guys. We are talking a lot about this whiskey. We just already went through the four core expressions that Becky's distilleries produce. So here's what I'm gonna put under the screen right now. First thing I'm gonna put under the screen is this URL.
Yeah, hit us up.
Hit it up. Here's another thing. You can actually grab your product straight from, literally from the website. So
Yes.
as I'm sitting right now, I'm looking on the website myself, and I'm seeing the one I told you, the Roundup Rye 92 proof, the distiller edition. You want
Yep.
that. You
Yep.
definitely want that. They have a midnight confession, which is a single barrel there, and
The
they have
rattles in there.
yeah, they have the Wonder Wheel, which is a single barrel, and they have the rattle right there in there. I think the first thing you should grab is the rattle. I'm looking at it now, and I'm looking at and 100% rye is not something you find often, and I'll tell you this. But here is the best part, and I'm gonna share my screen with y'all to show you something that I see that is very cool on this. Uh, I'm just gonna share screen here. I'm gonna go into your product and I'm gonna share this. I want you to see this with me. This right here.
Oh,
This
yeah.
right here is what you guys want because it is really gonna tell you if you're gonna like it. I love when people make small packages like that. You're gonna like it or hate it. At least you've tried all three different expression and know exactly where you are. For me, that would be my first buy. I'm grabbing this immediately to go, okay, I'm gonna try all three. And guess what? Price wise, look at that. 44.99.
Pretty good.
Easy. 44.99. You get to try all three expression and you know exactly where you are. So let's be honest. That's how you support a brand. So I will tell you right now, grab that sampler, and I promise you, if you don't like it, we'll split it 22-22. We'll make sure we but you have to be, I will tell you right now, be very honest. Beside this one here that Becky have, which is the converter, we're gonna call it converter now.
Yep.
You know,
Hmm.
we should call it even the preacher, not even the
Yeah.
converter now, the
Yeah.
preacher.
Yeah.
Beside
Evangelist.
that one,
Lay the hands on.
he laid the hand on people and turned them into rye drinkers. Beside that one, honestly, honestly, the other three, you have to love rye. I'll be honest, you have to love rye, then you can really appreciate it. But this first one, even if you're a bourbon drinker, you can grab this one. So grab the little things. Like I said, tell me about distribution. Looks like online you have access to distribute all
Right.
around the
Right.
place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the product distribution before we get into this infused thing you got going on
Oh
here.
yeah, that's fun. That's fun too. Um, so we mostly our core markets are Eastern Seaboard, right? Virginia, Maryland, DC, Delaware. We've got distribution in Florida and Georgia, South Carolina. You know, up and down the Eastern Seaboard, Massachusetts. We all have pretty good coverage there. We're in Texas. We're in on the West Coast some. Obviously, small brands like mine, distribution is quite a struggle for a lot of small brands right now, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother animal. But that's where it's good to have e-commerce and the ability to reach out to folks because
Correct.
as a person who lives in a control state myself, I feel the struggle of
Correct.
hearing about great whiskeys and not being able to get them in my liquor store. So
Right.
I'm a big fan of the ability we've had, and I just hope we can improve that even more over the coming years, so that
I'm, I'm,
more and
I'm
more
hoping
people
so.
use it.
I'm hoping so because you should not be a secret anymore. You, I'm hoping and praying that after this show, you get sick and tired of people calling and buying and bothering you to actually try your whiskey
Oh
because
yeah,
oh
but
my god,
make me work, people.
you're right. That's my goal.
I
That's my
love it.
goal. You know
I
what?
love it, Jack.
We need to I'm gonna put this on the air, but we definitely need to look at collaboration. Maybe I need to come there and pick my own single barrel
Be so much
and see
fun.
what Becky and I can come up with together
That'd
because I
be
think it will
something
be a lot of
crazy.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of
Yeah.
that musicality and what you got going on with what you're doing, it will be a lot of fun to actually see that come to fruition. I never thought that you could infuse. So tell me
This
about this
is
hot honey rye.
okay. Oops, here I am. I'm like terrible at this stuff.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's I just have a handwritten one, so I can show mine.
So this is our hot honey ride. So this is we did the first. This is came out of a collaboration with the local hot honey producer. They bought wanted to barrel age hot honey in one of our barrels, and so when we got the barrel back, we threw some whiskey in it. And I think one of the first people we'd had, I don't know if anybody out there is from Kansas, but I think like Gomer's bought a private
Oh,
barrel from
Gomer,
us.
yeah, yeah, I know Gomer's. Yeah,
And
I'm
yep,
2 hours away from 2 hour drive from Kansas. So yeah,
right. So they bought a hot honey finished rye barrel proof. And I got more people, when are we going to have some more? And then we had, I think Sealbox actually bought a hot honey barrel too,
Okay.
and they did one. And I got more people asking me for this barrel, right? So last year, about a year ago, actually, I said to my husband, we had one in the tasting room, and people would ask, and the one in the tasting room we did at 80 proof, and
Yeah.
people in the tasting room, when are we going to get more? When are we going to get more? So we decided to do it, right? To just do an expression. So for me, again, I felt like hot honey can be a lot. And when I wanted to create this, I wanted it to be, first of all, a whiskey, right? I didn't want to go all the way to Fireball Land and just be really
That's
sweet.
all. When I saw this thing, I'm like, what
Why?
is going on
Why?
here?
Right. I didn't want to. It has to be whiskey, and then I wanted to have that note of honey, and so even though the label says it's wildflower honey, it's actually three honeys. I use three different honeys to get the right balance of texture and flavor. Um, there's buckwheat, clover, and wildflower honeys that I then infused with habanero pepper. And you think, oh, this is going to blow my head off, right? But I really didn't want it to
I'm
be
nervous.
hot. I didn't want to do the chip challenge either, right? And that's not fun. I wanted this to be something that you could sip on and you get all three pieces of it. So balance was really key for me on this. And so the goal is, it's almost like an old fashioned, really. It's that you get all those pieces while it's still sippable.
I'm nervous. Becky.
Don't be afraid,
I'm
Jack. I
nervous.
promise I wouldn't. I won't. I
I
don't want
am
to blow your
very
head
much
off.
so nervous about this. It's. I'm like, okay, all right. You know what? We only die once, and we only live
You
once.
only
So
die
let's.
once. This actually makes a really fun Manhattan. If you put it with like sweet vermouth and a little bit of chocolate bitters, it makes a really fun Manhattan.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? It's not, it's like hot honey, but it's not hot honey. It's like just a little bit of,
This is this tastes like a high proof old fashioned. That's literally it.
that's literally it. It's like
This is,
easy.
dude. You see, you got me speaking out of turn. I'm like, dude, I can totally drink this. I'll pour this as shots for people. One, we have a group of friends where we will do like mud runs and color runs together.
Yes,
Like
yes.
this is like the perfect
You
shot
could
to
totally do
celebrate.
this.
Yeah, to celebrate after accomplishing something. Like, you know what? If you have an office, this is the perfect shot to actually start a Friday with. I
Not
can see the demand being high on this because it's so fun. You don't even need to mix it with anything.
no.
Hell, I would chill this in the freezer and just pour it to people like,
Pour it
hey,
on a cube.
bottoms up. Yeah.
Easy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so this is our new, it's been fun. The tasting room, it's been doing really well in the tasting room. Lots of people, because it's a little sweeter. Not everybody out there wants, we've been making beautiful, 100% rye whiskeys for a long time, but there is a demographic of folks who want something that's just a little more sweeter and, got a little zing. But it's been fun. It's doing really well.
I'm loving this. I am loving this. This
I'm
is
so
like,
glad.
whoa. I will have this on ice. I will freeze this. This will be so much fun
It is fun.
just to have around. You know what? If we should call this the fireball killer. That's what it should be. Like yeah. If I have this, I don't need any of that cinnamon bullshit. I will.
Mm,
I
It's
can.
like
This
you
actually,
smell
at
it.
least,
It
even
smells
for the
so good.
people
This is
that are health conscious, this is honey. You know,
Yeah, it's
it's
100%.
better for you.
I didn't want to do any flavored stuff, right? I didn't want it to be the honey flavoring. So it's natural honey. So, you've got a little haze in the bottle.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's natural honey. I wanted it to be natural honey. I wanted it to be natural chilies. I didn't want it to have any of those kind of other flavors. I wanted it to be completely authentic. And I just think it's fun. People have
it's
been
fun.
enjoying it.
I would tell you what,
It smells
Becky,
good too. It smells like
this
honey.
you got an advocate in me now. Next time somebody's is talking about who do you think we should be talking to about blending things, I say if you have anything to do with rye, move everybody aside. Please talk to Becky because you may want to write a bigger check just to actually have her come in and do this for
Aw,
you because
never. I
this
mean,
is
I know some powerhouse blender people out there.
what I'm telling you right now is Miss Harris. God bless you. You, ma'am, are doing the Lord's work here, and it isn't for me. Honestly, as the salesman in me, that's my background. Is unfortunate that the word is not fighting over what you're creating right now, and I think I will make it a mission this year to remind everybody that if you don't have a bottle of Catoctin Creek in your house, you're missing out. You're missing out on good whiskey. And yep, somebody on somebody high five cocktails on Instagram said I'm grabbing a bottle tomorrow because
Oh,
yes,
love it.
I'm telling everybody now. Look underneath you on Facebook. I know I've shared this in the Ontario Sippers group. I tell you guys, I know you do a lot of things in the US. I'm gonna tell you need to check out this distillery. This is gonna be a lots of fun for you. It's still small enough, right? When Becky blows up in a couple
That's
years,
it.
you guys
You
can
guys are
afford
going to be ahead of it.
can afford it. You gotta be ahead of the curve. You gotta be ahead of the curve. So I'm telling y'all right now, I have what I call an eclectic collection of people that I know, excuse my French, but know their shit and would
Yes.
do it the right way. And yeah, Becky just entered the chat. She just joined the list of those people. I'm a believer of Catoctin Creek. This is my first. You guys are seeing my first original reaction of this. I've never had her whiskey. This is the first time, and she made a believer out of me. And guess what? We are actually gonna get a few questions before I give you the last word.
I love
Uh,
it.
first question is, I'm in Dallas. Where are are you? I know you say you're in Texas. Is where in Dallas can this person find the whiskey?
So, Total Wine has carries us a lot of places.
Total
So,
Wine.
ask
Okay.
at Total Wine. Green Light is our distributor in Texas.
Okay.
Um, so, and if you have a local liquor store that you know these people, right? You have a relationship. Ask them to pick it up because
Correct.
it is definitely available. And you love small brands. You want to support small brands. Asking for us is a great way to help.
Correct. Correct. Um, I have somebody commented it. They said, I regret missing out on Catachan Cat Strength at Total Wine in 2022. They don't carry it anymore, and it's a sad day. Yes, it is. In fact, is. I'm telling you what.
You can always ask them because they can still get it and it might help them bring it back on the shelf.
See,
Sometimes that's what
sometimes
does
we
it.
got to put a little pressure on the retailer. So
Bring out your inner Karen, right? So you've
correct,
got
correct. You know
Karen,
what? You know what? You said
the
you said it
manager.
perfectly. Bring out your inner Karen, right? That this is funny. That like I love that you put that. Bring out your inner Karen and go in and say, "Hey, I want Catoctin Creek. When are you guys getting it? I need it here, so you
That's
can get
right.
your store owners to bring it on."
That's
Guess what?
right.
Distribution is limited, but if you have a Total Wine somewhere or an ABC store somewhere, hey,
Yep.
bring out your inner Karen and say, "Hey, I want this here. I want to try it," and push them to actually do so. Uh, you know what? Yeah, OJ just joined the chat. I'm gonna tell OJ, neat rock select, neat rock cocktail of TSR. Need to actually come see you. He loved doing single barrels, and OJ is somebody that I'm sure will pick an amazing single barrel because he has the palate and he definitely is good at what he does. He's in New
Awesome.
York, so it's easy for him to come down. But uh,
Yeah, not
that's
far
why,
away.
for me, that's why, in my opinion, as somebody who's very particular about their rye, this is a very good rye, and you're doing amazing. If there's something that you want the world to know that I did not ask about, if there's something that you want people to know about what you, your husband, your operation, and what you guys are doing, what would it be? The floor is yours. Take as
Oh,
long as you need, and let the world know what they
oh my
need to know about
goodness.
you.
Well, I love being part of this industry. I love bringing rye out and kind of like highlighting the history and the flavor to new people and changing minds. That's what I've been trying to do since, 2009 is bring rye out of this reputation that it has of being, a spice bomb across the board. I want people to try rye with the same curiosity that they'll try a new bourbon or a new scotch and open your mind and try something new. And that's really kind of what I've been advocating for folks to do. And also I always tell people that, go out and try your other local distilleries because there's lots of people doing a lot of fun stuff out there. That's the other hat I wear, where I'm advocating for other folks in the industry, and trying to get new people. There's always going to be a big PR machine for the large brands, and I get excited about exploring the flavors that some of the small independents are doing, and I think that's really exciting.
Guess what, folks? Her name is Becky Harris. Don't forget that name. Um, her distillery is her and her husband distillery is Catoctin Creek Distillery in Virginia. For
Yep.
all of you in Virginia,
Yep.
if you have not grabbed that barrel or you have not visited that place yet, guess what?
Come see us.
I feel sorry for you. You need to make the trip. Where exactly in Virginia are you guys located?
We are 30 minutes west of Dulles Airport on 7th. So it's like we're an hour west of DC. So most of folks, Leesburg is the biggest town close to us, and that's most Virginia folks know where Leesburg is. So we're right west of Leesburg. So
Guess what?
definitely come on by. Yeah.
Yeah, when
And
I
we're
if I
pretty
ever
close to
land in Dulles,
Pennsylvania.
I'm getting in the car and I'm Ubering down there just to actually come see the place quickly before I go anywhere. Becky, thank you so much for what you
Thank
do in the
you,
industry, and
Jack.
I
I
mean
had
this.
such fun.
The only reason why I will tell you right now, I bring folks in here is either because I believe in what they're doing, or I know them personally and know that they actually mean well in the industry, or they're producing something amazing that people need to know. And guess what? Check, check, and check. You check
Aw,
all those three boxes. Becky, you and I have dealt outside of the industry, and I've seen you advocate for folks. You came to classes I've hosted. I've heard so many people always say, you say Becky Harris, and people go, stop the clock. She is X, Y, and Z. She helped X, Y, and Z. And a lot of people are not dedicating part of their career to just see other people in the industry grow. You don't make it about you. Hell, half of the time people don't even know that you are in the industry because you advocate for so many people that people even forget that you actually are also a distiller and a blender and you do those things. So I want people to know that you are not a selfish person at all. You actually want everybody to win, and the least the industry can do is to make sure they support the work that you do.
Oh,
Um, the last thing I'm gonna ask you, this is something that I ask people that I believe have a little bit of owl in them, are a little wise in their ways, is what I ask guests that I want them to give me something, and it's called advice that does not suck.
whew.
Uh, Give me one advice that you believe does not suck, something that your life coach gave you, your husband told you, you read in the book, your something that you live by, a motto. We'll call it an advice that does not suck. Give me one advice that does not suck that we can close the show with.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that because, there are so many things just from doing this particular business in a small business role for the past 15 years is the thing that I have found so key for myself because one of, when you're a small business person, it's a roller coaster. It's up, you're either this is the best freaking job in the world and I am living the dream, or it's oh my God, give me a nickel and just let me out.
Right.
It's trying to just keep that piece of you that keeps perspective, and just kind of like try to stay centered in what you can control, because there are so many things when you're in business that you can't control, but to kind of appreciate the control that you do have, and just try to keep try not to jump out too far in the future or worry too far in the future, and try to stay on your skis, if you will, right? And that really kind of keeps me from having the ups and downs of the business or all the other stuff kind of get to you, because I think that's when you can stay centered in yourself and what you're doing and really proud of that piece of it, you can kind of roll with a lot of the other punches that you get.
You heard it here first. Becky told y'all. All you
It's
need to
not
know
pithy,
is,
it's not sassy, but
yeah, no, it's not. And that's an advice that definitely does not suck. Is, just control what you can control. Don't worry about what you cannot control. And remember to just always be yourself, right?
and
Control
have a
what you
nice
can.
nice glass of rye.
I know, right? Have some right and control what you can control. That's as easy as it comes. So for all
Right.
of you guys here, if you haven't heard something great on this Monday, just remember that just control what you can control. If you're here, if you're on Facebook, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on YouTube, if you're on X, or if you're even on Instagram, do me the biggest favor that I ask you. The least you can do is go and follow. A few people told me they're following you particularly because they're
Thank
inspired
you.
by you, but Catoctin Creek can use the support. Go in, follow them on Facebook or on whatever your favorite platform is, Facebook or on Instagram. Follow them. Sign up for their newsletter. If something come up, you will know about it. And if you're ever in Virginia,
Come see me.
stop by and just tell them, hey, I know there's this woman named Becky that I know who told me to come over. I'm just
Met
here
me
to
in
try
the
your
hood.
whiskey, right? Yeah, say, hey, the hood sommelier sent me here to come talk to
That's
y'all.
right.
What can I get? And maybe they'll be nicer to you. We don't know, but from what I heard, they're nice to everybody. So you come in, you support, and if you've been here the whole time and you've been listening to what we were saying, everybody is appreciating, especially on the Instagram side. Everybody's like, they love what you do. People that have tried your whiskey, they love your conversation and they appreciate the historic fact that you bring in. That's what a lot of people are saying, the historic fact that you're bringing in. Becky is amazing. She doesn't need to
Um,
hear it all the time, but yes, she's amazing. And if her husband is listening, I know he's in the back there. She's amazing. You're lucky to have her around. That's what the internet is saying. We appreciate you, Becky. I appreciate you taking your Monday and coming and chatting with me. I'm glad I got to
awesome.
discover your whiskey. You now made a fan out of me.
Thank
Remember,
you.
I am the hood sommelier. Now you are part of my hood. You're now part of the hood of whiskey. And anytime you need to talk about anything, if you have something new, if you have a new product, if you have something that you want the world to know that this is your house now, this is your hood now.
Ew.
You can come in and talk to us and tell us what's going on. We'll be happy to have you on, and we'll be happy to talk to you.
Thank
Um,
you.
for all of you guys watching, or if you're watching the recast, make sure you go give them a follow. And if you have a question for Becky, put it in the comment, put it where it is. I'll make sure to send it to her. And if I don't know the answer, I'll make sure to actually answer you. For all of you guys that are supporting the channel, that are supporting me, you know what? There's a reason why I heard today that I'm number 16 in the top 80 whiskey influencers of the year, right? So that means that somewhere I'm doing something right. So I appreciate every single one of y'all that are always advocating for me, always supporting what I do. I hope to bring you guys more Becky's of the words that are actually doing something valuable in the market. And till next time, all I will say is cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. Thank you.